Back on halftime and going to the phones where Aaron Torres joins us, good friend, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, Fox Sports Radio, and Kentucky Sports Radio, AT. It was SEC Media Days, of course, and a kind of a slow week, wouldn't you say? I don't know if anything happened this week. I just don't know what we can talk about.
Phil, you and I, two things. One, you and I are geniuses because you were out last week, and I was basically gone Monday to Thursday. And not a darn thing happened. We look smart as heck, and then we come back and the world changes. But really, listen, as I heard those wonderful golden tones leading me into this segment, what does this all mean for Arkansas baseball? Let's get to the bottom of this. Does it mean anything? I mean, when you're the number one team in the country, I guess it means nothing. But Texas is good, right?
Texas is really good, man. I mean, they're a College World Series entrant this year. Oklahoma has a decent-ish baseball program.
Great softball program, though.
And really
That's
good
right.
gymnastics, too. Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's all about the Olympic sports when it comes right down to this, isn't it? Or is it really just about trying to get ahead of the curve in, we say, changing landscape of college sports, but it does seem like, if Texas and Oklahoma really been talking about this with the SEC, as the Austin American-Statesman reported, for several months, then, they saw the writing on the wall. And, part of our question here is the last time around, it was about those schools and a couple of others looking west. Now they're looking east into a league that they're not going to dominate in the SEC if they do join in the way that some might expect they could dominate if they would have joined the Pac-12.
So, lots to peel back there, Phil. What I keep coming back to is a few things. One, what was interesting to me, and I was, you can read the tweets. I mean, I was that first afternoon at SEC Media Day when A&M was on the podium. I was a little bit skeptical. What does it all mean? But as I peel back the layers, a couple things stood out to me. First of all, all the initial reports. Yeah, they said that they're targeting the SEC, but what they really said, which was important to me, was that it's not that they're targeting the SEC. It's that they're letting the Big 12 know that once the TV contract goes up in 2025, they're out. And so to me, obviously the SEC is the place where you're going to make the most money, you're going to have the most prestige. And I think, as weird as it sounds, Phil, and I just tweeted this a minute ago, I think they almost weirdly have the SEC by you-know-what and not the other way around. You think that the SEC would have the final decision-making power to say, you know what, we're good at 14, whatever. But, if you let them go, then just think about the ripple effects. First of all, maybe they go to the Big 12. Maybe they go to the Big 10, excuse me. Maybe they go to the SEC or the ACC. Maybe they go to the Pac-12. But one way or the other, if they go to the Big 10 or the ACC, now those conferences are sitting at 16. Now you feel like you got to go to 16, and you're not going to get teams as good as them. And so for the whole of the SEC, to me it feels almost like a no-brainer. But then I think about a school like Arkansas, a school like Missouri, a school like Kentucky, a school like Tennessee. What does it mean for their football programs? And I don't think it's a net positive. So the only thing really at this point that feels like it's going to be interesting is, can A&M rally enough no votes in that room to get this thing not passed? But I don't think they will. And I think we're headed towards a not-too-distant future where we have, Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC.
Aaron, I just don't see how they get those no votes. I just think that off of face value, I saw a few reports yesterday where just off of them joining the league, it would already bring in an extra $16 million in annual revenue for each university, even having to split it cutting off another two slices of the pie. And the biggest thing about this story that I still can't wrap my mind around, I can wrap my mind around Texas and Oklahoma wanting to come to the SEC. I can wrap my mind around 4 conference super leagues and everything. I can't wrap my mind around A&M being left in the dark. I mean, if that is true and you were really left in the dark on this for 7 months, how does Greg Sankey and the rest of the SEC rebuild that relationship? Because that's a lot of trust just got thrown out the window if that's true.
Well, first of all, Drew, it's such a great point. That's the most fascinating thing to me about just this story as a whole is that, and I was just talking to, somebody pretty plugged in at A&M, not super plugged in. I wasn't talking to the AD or anything, but somebody that knows the landscape at A&M. And even he said, he's like, it's amazing to me that they kept this, quiet for 6 months. But Drew, you ask about how do you rebuild that relationship with A&M? I hate to be a jerk. I don't think it matters. What's A&M going to do? What are they going to do? Go back to the Big 12?
No.
Play Iowa State every year? No. They're going to stay in the SEC, and they're going to have to take their medicine. And I think it speaks to why A&M pushed so hard to get this story out. And I think we all kind of understand at this point, a Texas A&M beat writer broke the initial story, and it's very clear, in my opinion, it's speculation, but I think it's smart speculation, that it's pretty clear, in my opinion, that this story came from the Texas A&M side. They wanted to get out ahead of it to try and convince others to join their side. So, unfortunately, as our parents told us when we were kids, sometimes life isn't fair, and I just don't really know what A&M can really do in this situation. I mean, in theory, I guess they could leave. They would owe the SEC a ton of money. They're not going to make more money. They're not going to have more prestige. They're not going to have more success. Or they might have more success, but it's going to be a different deal somewhere else. And so it's unfortunate, but I think they're just going to have to take this pill. And I think the only thing that they can really do at this point is try to convince 3 other schools to get to those 4 no votes and say no to expansion. I just don't know if they're going to get them. I really don't.
Well, and so, everybody's got their ideas on what a division structure might look like, pods and everything like that. And really, who knows? What happens to the Big 12, or at least the schools that are left in the Big 12? Do they, splinter and you end up having maybe 4 super conferences, or maybe, we sometimes refer to the American Conference as a 6th-ish.
Go ahead and say it, Phil.
Five.
P6.
It
make Mike Resco happy.
It's not quite, but is that a way maybe for these 2 leagues, in a sense, to try to get their own super conference if they could?
Phil, you asked me about the Big 12, and I said, and when you said that, I said, well, what's the Big 12? Because it's like the dodo bird. I think it's about dead, Phil. I'm not going to lie. There's already reports that Kansas is trying to reach out to the Big 10, and obviously, look, Kansas is a very interesting in this scenario. It's a lot like my alma mater, UConn, great brand in basketball, and having a great brand in basketball doesn't really mean all that much in this day and age. And so, listen, it's so cliche, but it's so true. And we saw this, 8-10 years ago, whatever it was, 10, 12, 15 years ago, whatever it was, is that once the dominoes start to fall, it's survival of the fittest, and it's everyone for themselves. Now, I still think there are some political, legal things that are going to make it a bit more complicated, as far as Oklahoma State really trying hard to, tether themselves to Oklahoma, TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech. But at the end of the day, if those 2 programs leave after 2025, I don't think there's anything that the league can do or the other schools can do to keep them from leaving after the contract runs out. And so at that point, you have to start planning for your own. So, listen, are we going to start to see reports of the Big 12 has reached out to BYU or Houston or Cincinnati? Yeah, I think that's absolutely in play. And obviously, in theory, it would be a step up. But I just don't know if that's something that's really going to be tangible going forward, because I just think that while the other 8 schools are going to put on a public united front and we'll get through this and we'll figure it out, I just don't know that that's what's going to happen when push comes to shove in a Kansas or a Iowa State or whatever. Maybe they have an opportunity to go to a Big 10 or something like that. It sounds great now. I just don't see it. It'll be interesting to see if it happens going forward.
If the Big 12 were to try to stay united and add more teams, coming from a Memphis background, myself being an alumnus of the University of Memphis, I don't know if I would want my school to join the Big 12, because it's looking like a dying league. So that's going to be very interesting. But let's say we do get to the 4 made conferences type of thing, and we get to 64. Notre Dame, obviously, I think has to fully commit to ACC. So therefore, you only have 7 spots left, but 8 teams out of the Big 12. Who is the one that gets left out? Is it Texas Tech? Is it Kansas State, Baylor, TCU? Who's the one team left holding the Big 12 banner?
By themselves.
Yeah.
It's a great question. And I don't think there's any way to even begin to speculate on that. Because first of all, I don't think Notre Dame is going to become a full-fledged member of the ACC, especially in an expanded 12-team playoff where, they kind of can continue to do what they do, and it's actually easier for them now to compete for championships, not harder, and they got this great TV setup. Honestly, guys, I thought when I first saw this story, I thought Texas might consider going independent. I frankly think they probably should. I think that probably would give them a window to better success than going to the SEC and having to compete with Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Florida, whoever else they're going to play on a season-by-season basis. But I don't think Notre Dame's going to go to the ACC. But I don't really know the answer to that question. I mean, the logical answer would probably be TCU. They were the last to the party, smallest school, smallest fan base, all that
last
stuff.
Hired, first fired type of situation.
Exactly, yeah. But listen, what I'll say is if this goes down the way I think it's trending, it's just going to be insanity for the next whatever it is. It could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years. I mean, with the way that the Big 12 TV contract is set up. And so it's impossible to say. I think all that I can definitively say right now, Oklahoma, Texas will not be in the Big 12 by the middle of this decade. What does it mean for the SEC? I think I know what it means for the SEC, but all I really am positive about, the only thing I'm positive about is that the Big 12 is in big, big, big trouble. I do think this ends ultimately with Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC, but that remains to be seen.
Well, obviously a conversation that moves forward, and maybe by the next time we talk, Aaron, there will be a little more clarity on this.
Hopefully.
Apparently in 2 weeks they're going to be full-fledged members, so let's start waving that flag.
Well, Phil, all I'll say really quick, I know we're up against it. What a summer. I mean, the summer's supposed to be the slow time. First of all, we got a great College World Series. Let's never forget that. But we got name, image, likeness, one-time transfer rule. Coach K retires. Roy Williams retires. Texas, Oklahoma are out. Transfer portal's insane. This stuff just never slows down.
It doesn't.
Thank God we picked the 1 week a year, Phil, that it was safe to go on vacation. Who knew?
Yeah, no more vacations, okay? Even though I'm taking one next week. AT, appreciate you, man. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Appreciate it, Aaron.
Got it. That's Aaron Torres joining us on Halftime. 877-377-6963 if you want to be a part of the show today. And we got a couple of interviews going on in the second segment, a recorded spot with Grant Morgan that we got done yesterday, and Bob Holt was able to push back one day to this afternoon. We are brought to you by Pradco Outdoor Fishing. Going to be a great weekend to get outdoors. And make sure that you've got the Rebel Crick Hopper with you, because pond and creek fishing in Arkansas means the Crick Hopper. Nothing catches bass and bluegill like the Rebel Crick Hopper. Twitch it, pop it, walk it, or swim it. It's the ultralight fishing lure that looks and acts like a real grasshopper. The Crick Hopper also works great in tandem with light spinning rods and reels, 4 or 6 pound fishing line. Available at Walmart, Bass Pro Shops, Academy, LureNet.com, and tackle stores everywhere. Right back after this.